And he's one of these guys who, he's like Clarence Thomas, black Republican who believes in pulling yourself by your bootstraps, rather than, to me, understanding the systemic racism that African Americans face in this country and other minorities. He doesn't get it, neither does Clarence.
Right.
And that's why they're Republicans.
Yeah.
So that was the View's Joy Behar talking in regards to Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, who just recently announced his bid to run for president in 2024. And that statement basically got me thinking, what is systematic racism and does it still exist in America? So the first part, I know what systematic racism is basically just, practices and ways of the laws being dictated to where it causes inequality based on race. And I know back in American history we had that, but is that something that still exists nowadays? This is one of those things where someone says something, but they don't explain it. So doing my research, I stumbled on this video and I just want to react to it. So it's a gentleman by the name of James Klug. I'm going to put the description to his video in the comments below. So by all means, if you get a chance, follow his channel. In my opinion, he does great work on the streets. And I believe he's in California at Newport Beach. And he's just basically asking people on the beach, what is systematic racism and does it still exist to this day? So let's see what they say.
Okay, so 2023, today, does systemic racism exist?
Absolutely, of course.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think absolutely.
Okay.
Of course. It is one of our main tenets, is the level of racism and hate that we have.
It's so funny how people are so quick to just answer the questions. They say, yes, of course. Like, it's like, duh. But let's see if they're able to explain it.
I believe that's true.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't say that that's a huge problem at this time in 2023.
Anyone disagree with these two or no?
No. She's my wife. I disagree with her.
Oh,
Smart
okay.
man.
Systematically, when it comes to our institutions or laws or anything like that, are they in place to discriminate against Asian, black people, Indians, white people?
Redlining?
Right. I definitely agree.
Okay, redlining is basically a housing discrimination law. Basically goes by the whole accounting term where you're in the negative, you use a red pen. So lenders back then, when they didn't want to lend it to a particular area due to, low credit, low income, they would draw a red line around the area and say, we're not going to lend in that particular area. And obviously that was based on race because majority of people in those areas were black, if not all. So back then, yes, they had redlining, which was a housing discrimination, but that's definitely not on the books now. But let's see if he can explain this.
Agree that systemic racism existed in the past. To date, does it exist?
I would say yes.
It's kind of blown out of.
See, that's the thing. So I would say yes. Explain it. Where? Give me examples. I hope you push back on him. James, I hope you push back on this dude.
Proportion a little bit. Yeah, like if you look at what's really happening, it's like the best it's ever been for everybody,
Could you guys do your best to define systemic racism, just to make sure that I can understand what you think, what you believe it is?
Basically, it's already inbred in the system that there's going to be prejudice against a certain class of people, no matter what.
So there's policies, institutions that are against people of color?
Yes.
Okay, once again, he just explained basically what it was, 50, 60 years ago. That's what it was. It was basically policies embedded in policies in our laws and rules and regulations that created segregation, that created disparities between races back then. I want to know it now. So he's able to explain it, what it was, but can't explain it, what it is now, and does it still exist?
It really is a structural part of our society. It's not something like I dislike that person.
What system or policy would you guys point to that would be an example of that, would you say? Policing?
Policing for sure. Yeah.
Housing.
Housing?
Stuff I see online where the police and what they be doing,
I base it on that only.
You notice that he said stuff we see online, and he mentioned policing because that's obviously, you know, why they push that narrative about, you know, what white cops and black perpetrators and so forth. And of course, the main stories that push when a white cop acts out is knowing when a black guy is basically not complying. You know, I've been pulled over, I've been arrested before, I've been arrested by a white cop before, actually, but it was no issue because I complied. You know, I knew that, hey, I know the law's on my side. I could fight it when I get downtown, once I get arraigned and so forth. I'm not gonna go down the history of that situation, but that's the thing. So when they put it online and they put it on the news, Black Lives Matter starts, you know, advocating and protesting. This turns to riots and so forth. People get the feeling that racism does exist.
Sit on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think some people are blowing that out of proportion? In your opinion?
I mean, there's always a political agenda type of deal with that, but
Agreed.
I think it's just kind of people don't think for themselves, you know, just going along with what everyone else is thinking in the social media and all that.
Everything that's
Definitely
going on in
agree.
Florida right now.
But that's mostly like transgender stuff, right? There's no real race laws going on in that. So
Well, I guess my question would be, what race
Well, the
laws can we look at that we can
immigration
improve on, do you
laws-
think?
The immigration laws that they're doing in Florida right now is to curb people of color coming in. It's not just the transgender. He is attempting to curb immigration coming in.
She's referring to Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis. Man, this guy, he has a strict bullseye on him. And maybe he, you know, purposely does that with the laws that he's pushing that's really hard against this whole woke culture, you know, when it comes to transgenderism, immigration, things of that nature, the diversity, equity, and inclusion in schools. So obviously this lady has a strong hate or dislike for Ron DeSantis, but I have a feeling she's not going to be able to quantify it and explain it in a very concise way.
You mean illegal immigration, or are you talking about legal immigration?
Both. He doesn't want people of our color, not of our color, in the state.
How so, do you think? Housing, do you think?
After the war, I guess when World War II, when they came home and basically they made the GI Bill, it wasn't spread out for everybody.
Today, 2023, not, you know, we know that it,
Once again, we're talking about now, 2023. I think that's why Joy Behar was able to say what she has said and it get no pushback, because people don't know. They just feel that, you know, the system is racist, but they can't quantify and explain it. And unfortunately, this gentleman can't do it. And I hate when I see this from an older man, because I expect to have a sense of knowledge and a high sense of wisdom when it comes to an older man. But unfortunately, not seeing it here with this gentleman.
It still exists today.
what, like redlining or?
Redlining.
Redlining was banned in the, it was banned in the 80s, and it's illegal today.
That doesn't mean anything.
That it's illegal?
Yo, I was about to say the N word. Yo, how you mean this? That don't mean anything today. You're talking about there's laws on the books that are racist. Therefore, the system is racist. He basically told you a fact that there is no laws on the book that's racist based on housing. And he says that doesn't mean anything. That's why you can't really have a long conversation, an argument, or debate with people that think this way, because once they're off the cliff, you can't save them. It's very unfortunate. They're going to have to save themselves. And once again, I can't believe for an older black man. I mean, I can understand he might be in an emotional state due to what he heard from his parents and grandparents, maybe some things that he lived through, because I'm not too sure how old he is and if he lived in the South back in the 60s. But still, man, you got to educate yourself. You know, you really do in this society. There's a lot of information out there. You got to grab hold onto it and not use your emotions to dictate your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's illegal, but it doesn't mean anything. People still do it.
Those would be criminals. Those people would go to jail.
Police immediately comes to mind because that's such an anomaly. You have white police forces that are policing black communities.
actually, most black communities have majority black police forces, including black police chiefs and black mayors and such.
In many of the
What's going on there if that's
Yeah.
the case? If that's the case, what's going on there?
Many and larger, but just remember that some of the problems with policing aren't always racial based. A lot of the problems with policing are institutional based.
that leans more to the whole Tyree Nichols situation back in I think like 2 or 3 months ago in Baltimore, where 4 or 5 black cops like brutally beat him to death, and you can't really associate racism based on that because they were black just like him. But I guess he's talking about the culture, and that's different. That has nothing to do about systematic racism.
So that's what
So
I'm saying.
just because there's a black policeman, it doesn't mean that once he puts on a uniform, he begins to accept a very different outlook toward the people he's policing.
What policy are we referring to more so, would you say, that you're talking about there? Which one is that? Or I guess we could look it up.
Well, any of the, United States immigration policies in general, I think, are discriminatory because the bulk of the illegal immigration that we have coming in comes in from airplanes, not at the.
She said the bulk of illegal immigration comes from airplanes. So she's saying they come from like Europeans. Not only this lady is emotional, but she's very uneducated. I mean, come on, lady. You have to know it comes majority over the border.
So trying to stop stuff at the border and people at the border is just a small part of what the actual issue and the real issue is.
Oh, great thing about this YouTuber. He puts up the profile of unauthorized population in the United States, and yeah, it basically justifies and substantiates what I just stated. It says right here, roughly about 60% comes from Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, India, Honduras. So that's majority over the border, not through planes. And what he highlight here in red is 4% came from Europe, Canada, and Oceania. Oceania, can't pronounce it correctly. So yeah, most of the immigration came over the border. So this lady, hope you don't spend too much time on her because she don't know what she's saying. She's basically a great depiction of what Malcolm X would call the white liberal, where they have a sense of guilt, so therefore they pander and not even realize it sometimes.
And the biggest illegal immigrants that we have are from Europe.
Both a visa overstay and stuff, that would be illegal as well. But that's just immigration policy. Doesn't every single country have that?
Hey, look at a young girl that's with this lady. I know it's her mom or her aunt, but she looks so embarrassed to be with her. She got her hair covered and everything. I don't even know why she's staying in camera shot. But look at her. She's covered. She's looking down. She's like, man, I can't believe this woman is my mother. I can't believe.
Like you can't go across a country's border illegally and enter their country. Every country has that. Is that systemic racism?
But when you focus on one particular area of illegal immigration and not the others, you're focusing here on the border and saying this is where the problem is. But that's not where the problem is. The problem is.
Well, there's about there's 200,000 people, over 200,000 people coming across the southern border every single month. So I mean, it is a problem for sure.
We've had record number of people trying to cross the southern border.
But
a lot of the problem that we're seeing at the border too is there's a humanitarian crisis happening too, and we're having record numbers of fentanyl coming over. There's children that are dying at the border. There's kids that are drowning. They're being human trafficked down there. I mean, so it's like a humanitarian crisis down there at the border too, and I think that's why there's a lot of focus on it that's not really talked about too much.
Okay.
What example?
Yeah, she's looking around because she's like, I lost this debate. I have nothing to stand on. So I'm out of here. And I'm out here as well because these people are not making any sense. Majority of them are not. And I don't even want to talk about this gentleman here because he's lost in the sauce. So once again, there was a time where America had laws on the books that were racist. Therefore, the system was racist. Totally agree. Not denying that. But this day and age that we're in right now in America in 2023, where you just had a black senator in South Carolina announce his bid for presidency to run for president in 2024, and you have a lady on TV, a white lady, white liberal, saying that systematic racism still exists and gets no pushback, it basically just tells you that everything's more about narrative than the reality of situations. But correct me if I'm wrong. What laws do we have in the books that are systematically racist? Let me know. And if you got nothing to say and you agree, give me a like. I greatly appreciate it. Later.
Redlining was banned in the banned in the 80s, and it's illegal today.
That doesn't mean anything.